What's up, everybody? This is OHM coming at you with this new, how I put it, series. I don't know if it's going to be a series, if it's going to just be 2 or 3 videos. We'll see how it comes out in the editing. But it's something that I've been very passionate about. All of my brothers and my sisters around me understood how passionate I am about it. And that was CHH and how it shifted, how it changed. And I was like, you know what? I should be making a video about this. I should be actually talking about this and just getting my thoughts out there and actually seeing what others thought about it. Because, I mean, I was in the thick of it, being a DJ, Christian music DJ for probably decade, probably close to a decade and a half. But I've seen from the beginning, from in my teens, from preteens actually, from preteen to adulthood, I've watched Reach. And so I was like, let me do this video. Let me get this out of there. Because now I just want to speak my mind about this and hope that my heart is not seen evil. But the one thing I will say is, one thing I learned is that this new age of Christian, this new age of believers are very sensitive. And you have a lot of these Christians today can't even be unashamed for him in this peaceful time, or are so emotional that they can't even see another side of things. You can't have a rational conversation. And don't even get me started on social media, which I don't think anyone should ever engage in dialogue on social media, especially the worst kind, Twitter, because it's capped. So it's just dumb, but it just shows you the emotional intelligence, how lacking we are as Christians when it comes to it. I want people to understand that my heart on these videos are not to bash, it's not to degrade, but it's just to point out, and hopefully the 1, 2, 10, prayerfully thousands of people who listen to this will understand that my goal is to shift back to God and God alone, especially in these days, and to shift the God's people to be creating a community that does not need the world at all. Because there's one thing that I just cannot rock with, is the notion that we need the world in order to be successful. Because, and this might sound harsh, but just look at the prosperity preachers who made millions off of the backs of Christians. Just imagine if a Christian church of that magnitude actually supported a project, and that project actually was supported by the people of God, and this community actually became something more than just divisiveness and backstabbing and backstepping and backsliding, whatever you call it, but actually just work together to make a whole. What am I talking about? Where am I going on in this rant? Well, I'm talking about Reach Records. We're going to be talking about Reach Records and the impact that they had on Christian hip hop, Christian rap. I always like to say Christian rap, but Christian hip hop is what the main focus of what people like to call it. So I'll stay in that vein, but I had never called it Christian hip hop, mainly because I just was never of the ilk of wanting to be second fiddle. wanting to be a subgenre. I've always wanted to be like our own type. And I think that in a way, Reach saw that also. And that's the reason, but I believe they went about it the wrong way. And so I just want to talk about it in these videos and just get a perspective on it. Reach Records, the cornerstone of hip hop in today's Christian community. The really only place that has such a mainstream presence that even people who know nothing about Christian music or the subgenre Christian rap, they know Lecrae. And even in some vein, they know Andy Mineo. Now, I just noticed lately that I was not enjoying the music. I was listening to music to critique or to make a video or when I was DJing, but I just didn't enjoy it. And a lot of my friends didn't either. A lot of the people in my circles didn't, even young, because I'm an old head. So I'm talking about the young people that I ministered to. They weren't rocking with it. And I found that I myself, if I did listen to Reach, I was listening to Trip Lee and then KB when he was, and then he left. But I was wondering why. Am I too old for it? Was it changing? I started to see online that I wasn't the only one. People were pouring out their disapproval. The one thing I don't like about Reach Records, and it's not just them that do it, it's a lot of young Christian believers. They try to switch it to talk about, well, I'm going a different avenue with it, and y'all should respect that because I'm not sinning. I'm still living a Christian lifestyle. But the way that we are supposed to live is to be a candle. And that's something you can't dispute. It should be something that they know about you. It's not in your talk, but in your walk. But the thing about music and entertainment in itself is that it is in your talk. That's the whole thing that got you. It's your talk. People know nothing personally about you in the entertainment sector. They only know what you present, aka the fruit that you present. But I just started to notice that the dominant record label was just not where a lot of people thought it should go. There were spiritual concerns, dislike of the new direction in the music. Some were just being plain hateful, calling them fallen brethren or antichrist or something stupid like that. But with my personal biases aside, I started gathering information, listening to interviews, understanding where they were coming from. And I just wanted to say, is this organization going away? And I came to the conclusion that I'm going to talk about in the last video of this, is that they had an idea and they went left with it. And I don't think they'll ever understand it until they meet Jesus, or until they, most people when they reach their 50s, they get to introspection and they'll see that they were wrong. And I think that's the only time they will recognize that they were wrong. And the reason why I say they were wrong is because of Christian rap, aka Christian hip hop as a whole, where it is now and where it was when they started it. And when I say they, I mean Reach Records, because Reach Records was the movement at that time. They were the biggest names. They were the biggest draw. They were the rock that Christian rap was on. And the problem is they went the Peter route where it was like, I don't know that guy. But anyway, to understand all of this, we're going to look at the early years of Reach. In the early years of Reach, it started off with Lecrae. 2004, Lecrae came out with a banger of an album at the time called Real Talk. It was on a record label that had some amazing artists, Cross Movement. And Lecrae was a breath of fresh air because at the time, the main scene of Christian rap was dominated by hard East Coast vibes that Christians from different parts, not the East Coast, at the time just could not rock with. I know for me personally, I couldn't. I remember when I was a preteen doing my own thing, and one of the youth ministries was like, hey man, listen to these guys. And they gave me some CDs. That's just how old I am. And they were like, listen to these guys. And I listened to them and I was like, this is whack. And I'm not going to name any names, but they were prominent East Coast rappers. that were Christian, and I just could not rock with it because I'm from the South. And in the South, we love that beat. We love when you stay on the beat. We love when we can move our head to the beat while your lyrics were on track with it, and they were not doing that. So Lecrae was like a breath of fresh air. And at this time also, you got to understand, there were other vibes coming into play also. You had people from the West Coast that was dropping their stuff. Gospel gangsters were coming into their own. You had the Tunnel Rats. You had just some people who were pushing it West Coast style. And then you had the South, who I was listening to them, and I hate to say it, man, but they were like so behind the time. Like you could tell they were probably in somebody's closet recording it, but their heart was for God. But I will say one of the best ones I knew were Prime Minister and this record label Southern Gospitality. They were doing their thing. But anyway, back on track. Everybody was trying to push their thing, but no one had it killing like Lecrae did when he dropped that. And of course, the success was automatic for him. He was the one that seemed to be loved by all areas, especially with the album After the Music Stop. At this time in the early 2000s, Christian music that wasn't gospel or contemporary was frowned upon by the community, and Christian rap wasn't getting loved by anyone compared to other genres, especially by Christians. Lecrae knew this, and Reach was born out of that idea. Reach formation is very more detailed than what I'm saying right now, but my whole goal is to not go into the super history of it, but I just wanted to give you that synopsis of what started it. This approach hit the streets, and I'm gonna tell you right now, their approach was amazing, because it basically was like, you can be Christian and not lame. You can have this sense of, for lack of a better word, cool, and still love God. The label, when it first came out, the artists were Lecrae himself, Trip Lee, Tadashi, and Sho Baraka a little later. The success was automatic for the crew, coming out with hit after hit for Christian audiences. Houston, We Have a Problem. We had If They Only Knew. And then later on, Sho Baraka dropped his solo album. But when those three dropped, it was pandemonium. And it's so funny because when you go back and listen to them, I'm sorry to say, they didn't age that good, but at the time, we were desperate for something, something that wasn't not good quality, or just everything that was like that old school East Coast vibe that most people that wasn't from the East Coast just could not rock with. I mean, just look at the music, rap music today. East Coast has almost died out. Even the people from the East Coast don't sound like the East Coast. They sound like the South, Atlanta. They sound like every other place. And it's because people just don't like hearing that. And I hate to say it because I've grown to appreciate and love East Coast as I got older, as an old head now with gray hair. I understand the importance of lyricism, and I'm all about it now. But back in those days, getting back on it, the thing about these brothers were they were not just artists. You got to understand, most of them went to seminary school, and they were very adamant about Christ. Their music was unashamed to the point where it screamed Jesus. It screamed God. If you were ever to go back and listen to all of those albums that were made in the early 2000s to probably 2010, you would hear nothing but gospel. I mean, nothing but gospel. Christian rap at the time was getting a reassurance with young hip hoppers who wanted to learn more about God and listen to the music that promoted it. Reach not only just had music, but they educated you. This is the amazing thing about the Christian rap of that day. It educated you. When you listen to a rap song from one of these artists, you didn't just listen to something that jammed. You left out with your mind exploding with the Bible. I didn't know this scripture, but now I'm looking it up. I remember when they say Mango Day, I didn't know what that was. They used the Greek and the Hebrew. They brought stuff through scripturally that you did not understand, especially if you were a young person from the world converting over to Christianity, and they hit you with some great knowledge. You really wanted to be unashamed for the Lord. They screamed God's name, like I said, in their concerts, in their interviews. Their music was ministry to the listener. Anyone that thought otherwise just did not listen to their music at that time. Take Reach's 13 Letters. The 116 album was amazing. It was, to me, one of the best albums they ever released. I was a young person trying to get away from my sinful past, and that album went in so much detail. It made me search Paul's letters, and I mean, that music spoke to me to where it's in my playlist till this day. 13 Letters, if you have never heard that album, you need to go back. Listen to it. It's amazing. Their lyrics were on point. Their beats were nice. And it was all God. Then something changed. I'm going to end it right here. This is the first video, and we're going to talk about the change. The change that I think maybe they had the right heart about it, but they chose, to me, a bad path to go about it. But anyway, this was OHM. I hope you liked the video. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe so you know when I'm coming out with another one. Hit that notification. Thank you. And once again, know what my heart is on this. It's not to bash, but it's to uplift and change minds. We sharpen around here. We don't dull. Come get sharpened. I'm not saying I'm the best iron, but I am in that fire. Peace.